Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily here on a Tuesday. Glad to be with you. It is a Sunflower Showdown day. It should be a lot of fun. Excited to get into that for you, with you. Looking forward to it. And it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have that. We'll have some NFL news. Russell Wilson's cut. L'Jarius Sneed is tagged. We'll make our way around it. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. Chad Chambers producing. Should be a fun show today. We've got some giveaways, some contests to tell you about later. All kinds of great stuff. We're fueled up this morning by our Prairie Fire coffee, and we always appreciate that great coffee from Prairie Fire here at the Odyssey Studios. KFH hotline's open, 869-1240. It's wide open today. No guest on a Tuesday. It is an open show, which means your calls. Tommy, how are you this morning?
You know, I'm doing well. It kind of seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, are you dragging a little bit this morning? You seem a little tired.
Yeah, I'm a little tired.
A little worn out.
Trying to get ready for a trip. It's late night at the stores. But that's all right. We get a little coffee in us, and we're going to be rocking and rolling here in no time as we make our way into a Sunflower Showdown. We're all going to be tired again tomorrow, too, right? Because it's a late game tonight at the Sunflower Showdown. It's the 8 o'clock tip. You'll, of course, hear the K-State call right here with us on KFH. But, yeah, I'm always tired. I got 3 kids, and when are you not tired? You know, like you get a nap anytime you can these days.
You got a big trip coming up, and I know that you're not a lay on the beach, kind of guy for days on end. I am. That's really, that's my idea of a dream vacation, doing nothing, laying on the beach, not having to go anywhere. I think that's perfect to me. I know you're different than I am, but I'm jealous that I don't get to go.
Yeah, I like it for a while, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good now. What's next? No, we're doing some hiking. I'll give snorkeling another try. That did not go well the first time around in my life. Snorkeling. We were on our honeymoon, and I know this will surprise you. I haven't spent a lot of time in the ocean. In the panhandle of Texas, maybe a lake. Maybe. So we're out on the boat. And everybody out there, it's like a boat full of people, and the captain's like, they're driving around out in the middle of the ocean. I'm like, all right, everybody snorkeled before, right? Has everybody snorkeled? Has anybody not snorkeled? And then nobody raises their hand, and I'm like, well, I'm not raising my hand. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. And so like, all right. And then they just basically throw us all off the boat in the middle of the ocean. Well, everyone's sort of in a group looking around. And granted, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And the first breath I take is just full of water. And so I'm out there just like a fool, like totally lost, turn around, can't get figured out. And I look and the group is gone. Like they're way far away. And I'm like, well, this is it. This is where I'll die. This will be great. And then eventually my lovely wife, remembered that I was there on her honeymoon too, and sort of made her way back to me. But no, I want to give that another shot. Do a little hiking, but yeah, laying around sounds more appetizing than maybe ever before this time around. So we're good.
You gonna do a luau, little hula dancing? Is that part of the plan?
We had an incredible one on our honeymoon. I've seen one really, really good one and one that was kind of meh. I've been out there twice. So I would like to, but it was more fun the first time because we were, newlyweds, and they like called you up on stage and made an idiot out of you and messed with you a little bit. That part was fun. So we have this, but we're going to wear the most obnoxious shirts we can on the way out there to try to like get free stuff. So yeah, if I can, if it's interactive and that kind of thing, I'm all in. But no, I don't know I don't know if we'll do that. That's a good question.
Well, and now you're at a point in your life and in your marriage where you can make fun of the newlyweds that are being made fools of, and not just for what, they're doing up on stage, but, you can say things like, oh, they have no idea what they're in for. Wait till they're married 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's, but that was, being out there as a newlywed was incredible. Of course, everybody hopes when they go to Hawaii, they get laid, and, it's just, Chad, do you have a drum roll for that?
I can find one.
That wasn't that wasn't good enough. I don't think for a little high hat there.
I mean, come on, you go to Hawaii, you get laid. Like that's the best. That's the best never ending job. I'm gonna make that joke 36 times a day while I'm out there. For those,
God bless your wife for having to listen.
It's when they
to
put the
that.
flowers on your neck. It's a lay, so you get laid. They put the flowers.
We all picked up on it.
Joke never fails when you're out in Hawaii, nor does obnoxious Hawaiian shirts. So that'll be me.
Are you gonna? Hey, will you rock the tall socks and the sandals while you're out there too? Because that goes really well with the Hawaiian shirt.
So I don't know how I feel about socks and sandals like coming in style. By the way, no offense to any sock and sandal wearers out there, but man, I can't do it. And it's happening. Like it's there. We're all the way there. I caught a lot of heat when I was ahead of the trend. Again, like my style and everything stopped a long time ago. So when I bought a pair of like those Birkenstock sandals a few years ago, my wife was like, "You can't wear those." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? They're so comfortable. I'm totally going to wear these." And it was like this whole thing and like bickering and then whatever. So like the next summer, or maybe it was 2 summers later when they're all of a sudden in style and literally everybody has them. Guess who has a pair or two? Following it up.
You're just ahead of the curve.
Oh, look, honey, you got some Birkenstocks there, I see. But now the thing to do with those is to put socks with them.
Yep.
And I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do that.
You basically what you need when you're going to be out there is you've already got the Hawaiian shirt, but you got to rock the tall socks up to your knees with the brown leather sandals. You've got to do a big wide brim straw hat.
I do sunburn easily.
A camera around your neck. And then if you could get a pair of the sunglasses that flip up, you would be. Oh, and you got to put the sunscreen right on your nose. Just a big white
I'll embarrass
streak of
my
sunscreen
wife
on your nose.
Plenty. I wear like a do rag like Tupac wore. So I sweat profusely from my head. And so when I'm out, like and doing stuff in the summertime, again, embarrasses my wife greatly. I've got a do-rag. So I'll have that on a lot probably while we're out there. That'll embarrass her nicely. I think she thinks people, might get the wrong idea and try me on, when I've got that kind of tough guy thing going.
I get it.
Yeah.
They might want to square up. I get it.
Yeah. I appreciate her sentiment, but let's be real. I'll be fine. If anybody gets the wrong idea there. No, I will. It's not, I don't know if it'll be as fun. It'll probably be just as fun embarrassing my wife. So we'll do a little of that while we're out there for sure. But my kids won't be there. And they are kind of getting old enough to be embarrassed. Like when they get on the bus every day and I like run out of the garage blowing them kisses. And, my 6-year-old will still catch them and put them in her pocket. But our 9-year-old refuses to even turn around and acknowledge, which of course I just yell louder at her that she's going to miss it. It's going to blow away and I've got to blow her another one. And it's coming. Like we're almost there with the oldest one. So they're not coming with us that far on the trip, but I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And probably so is my wife. So some of it can deflect away from her.
Yeah. So as we've talked about before on this show, my kids are a little bit younger than yours are, but my almost 3-year-old is now getting to a point to where he's talking back some, and this morning is a great example. I typically am the one getting him up in the morning because we have a baby and my wife is taking care of the baby. So I go into his room, I turn the lights on, I say, "Good morning." And the first word out of his mouth is "stop." I said, "Good morning." And he said, "Stop." And I turned around and I walked right out of the room.
Yeah. It's, you pretty soon you better watch that smart mouth is going to be something that comes out of your mouth several times a day. That we're to that stage too, which is so hypocritical every time I say it. I'm like, you got 2 parents who are the biggest smart alecks in the world. Like, of course our kids are going to have smart mouths. And it's just like, it's so funny. Like every day you transform into your parents. No, it'll be a great trip. We're looking forward to it. It'll be a time zone. So because I'm going to watch basketball. It's like conference tournament week. So I'm going to be doing that, but at very odd times of the day, like those early Big 12 games out there are going to be like at 7 a.m., but that'll be fun. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to all of the remainder of the Big 12 as we, sort of move into an appetizer here, because we'll start with the Sunflower Showdown when we come back. But I really am like, I start to think about now because we know Houston's going to be a contender out of the Big 12 as we get ready for the conference tournament. I kind of am starting to like Iowa State as I feel like they're going to be overlooked a lot come tournament time. I don't know that the general public is really caught on to how good Iowa State has been this year. They've been really, really good. Baylor is coming on, Tommy, very strong down the home stretch. And, they seem like a team that might be poised. And we were going through it yesterday, not here, but, in the TV office about Kansas in the tournament. And we looked. Did we look at the similarities between K-State's metrics with San Diego State? I think we may have brought that up to Shreyas yesterday. But man, if you go back and you just kind of look at some of the teams that make runs, they're almost always really good defensively in the metrics. And the degrees of offensive success vary. Like UConn was a great offensive and defensive team last year, but K-State wasn't, right? San Diego State wasn't. That's two teams in the Final Four that are above average, but not like for the tournament sake. And the teams in the tournament, very average offensively and then really good defensively. And so I'm starting to warm up to KU a little bit as a team that could maybe make noise in the tournament, I think, which is weird because for several weeks I've been the opposite, but I'm like, man, if they really do, like if they come out and play the kind of defense, they're going to be tough to beat in the tournament. I don't know that there is a really good team that is more dependent on matchups than KU is, but if the cards fall right and they don't play a team that shoots a ton of threes well, they're going to have a chance to make noise in the tournament.
Yeah, that's really, I think, to your point, as far as matchup dependent, I'll answer your question with my opinion. I don't think there is another team as good, as talented as Kansas is, but it's really dependent on the matchups. There are some teams out there in the top 5 or even the top 10 that are just really solid basketball teams that play their game regardless of what the matchup is and do really well at that. We know Houston is always going to get after it defensively. It doesn't matter who they're playing. We know that UConn, they're the type of team that they just go out there and they play their game. And it really, a lot of times, doesn't really matter the matchup. I think Iowa State is like that a little bit too. Kansas is really, really, really good when they have the right matchup. When they have the wrong matchup, things tend to fall off a cliff. And you really, I think that all you have to do is look back on the last week or so. And I get they were without Kevin McCullough, but look at how well they played against Texas last Saturday at home and then turned around on Tuesday, also at home, and lost to BYU, a team that shoots a ton of threes. So it was the exact same rotation, the exact same lineup. Kevin McCullough was out for both of those games, and they looked like two completely different teams. And I think that it was partially due, or maybe even largely due to the matchup between Texas and the matchup between BYU. The one against Texas favored the Jayhawks. The one against the Cougars did not. And so as they get into the tournament, that's really, I think, going to play big time to how far the Jayhawks end up making it in the tournament based on their seeding number 1, their region number 2, who else is in that region, and what the path to a Final Four looks like. If it is a favorable path, well, then at that point, we can have a discussion about what that ceiling actually is for Kansas, because I do think that there is a path for it. But again, as we talked about before, everything has to fall right.
Yeah, and it's odd because, we go in the tournament, like at least I do this when I'm thinking about brackets, like I'm already thinking about, all right, these are the teams I like to go to the Final Four. And I sort of see if that will happen based on where they land. I don't know that this is going to be the year to be able to do that with KU. Like you really are going to have to study them in their spot on a more predictive. I mean, maybe some people fill out their brackets that way, right? Like they really take it game by game and advance it that way. And I do to some degree, but I almost work backwards. I'm like, all right, these are the teams that I like to get there. And then I kind of work my way back a little bit. I don't think you can do that with KU this year. You really do have to work it forward. And so, like, if you have them winning one game, that's easy, right? You just look at that one. Then you really have to think about, okay, who do I win? Who do I think will win the other one? And how do they match up with that team? and then do that again, and then do that again. Because if they're teams that haven't been great shooting teams from the outside this year, they're going to have a hard time with KU. They're going to be good down low. They're going to be good defensively. If they can hit free throws, right? Because we feel like their games in which they'll have success will be grinded out type of games. They're going to be hard to beat. And so it'll be a good test for them tonight at home. What is the line, by the way? I was guessing 7.5. Let me check that here this morning because I have not looked yet at the line tonight, but it is efforting. Okay, here we go. So 11 points. Holy smokes. And I know history. I guessed it would be at 7.5, 11. I didn't think it'd get that big, but that's a big line.
To me, that sounds like Kansas State covering the number all night long.
I'll have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure that's probably like if we go back and look at K-State in Lawrence, I wonder how many times they've covered that number in the last 3-4 years. I bet it's not very often.
But keep in mind, and I know we're going to talk about it, next segment, but
it's hard.
You've got an extremely desperate Kansas State team that know that it's must win time if they want to make the tournament.
With three guys who can light you up from three, right? If Kaluma, Carter, and Perry go, I mean, it's kind of a good test for KU because it is sort of a bad matchup for them with K-State this year, right? Like K-State's a team that, and I'm not saying that like that's their strength, but they do have three guys who can get hot from the outside at any given time in Perry, Carter, and Kaluma. So maybe it is a pretty good test for KU tonight. I don't think I'll bet that. What's the over-under? The over-under is at 143. God, that's a good number too. I don't think I'm going to bet. I don't really like any of that. I don't like the spread. I don't like the over-under. I'm going to have to really think about that. We'll do that throughout the show. We'll see if we can come up with a couple bets on this game we can find that we like. But it'll be fun. We'll get into that game as we make our way through. A couple NFL stories, though, that we definitely want to talk about. Russell Wilson's cut, which we knew was coming, but it's official. And L'Jarius Sneed is tagged, which we knew was coming, but now it's official. We'll get into those two stories as we make our way through this Tuesday on Sports Daily.
.97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Track staff knows what it takes to make your truck, Jeep, or SUV stand out.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on this Tuesday. KFH and Taco Bell have your chance to win a trip for two to the College Hoops Championship Tournament in Kansas City, March 13th through the 16th, to cheer on our favorite teams. This trip includes 2 all-session tournament passes and 3-night hotel accommodations. To enter, simply text TB BIG to the number 20357. Want a complimentary breakfast burrito? Go to kfhradio.com, click on the events page, download the voucher, and then head to any Wichita and surrounding Taco Bell locations, excluding Hutchinson. Your chance to see the College Hoops Championship Tournament and snag a complimentary breakfast burrito from Taco Bell happens here on KFH. Welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. So, Tommy, on this trip, I'm thinking about trying a beard. I have not in my adult life ever had enough time that I wasn't on television to see what I could do with the beard. Now, I know that it's going to be sparse-ish, but it's probably better than I think it would be. I don't know about like this area here. The mustache or like kind of gets a little white trashy right here and doesn't really come in.
You'll have the Amish deal, right?
No, I think it'll come in a little bit on the side, but there's a real good chance it's just totally patchy and gross. But we're going to give it a shot. I'm pretty sure I've convinced myself. I've got one kid who's excited about it and one kid who's terrified because I'll look different than I ever have. But I keep telling her, like, sweetie, there's a real good chance I don't look different at all. If I go, but I'm going to have a stretch of days where I can give it a run. So maybe, the Monday I return, I'll leave it until then. And then my only question is, as a beard guy, you're a beard guy. I don't know how often you get rid of yours. What is the process of getting rid of it once it gets, quite a bit longer?
My favorite thing to do, and there have been a couple of times in my life, and what the first time was that COVID stretch when everybody was at home, and I'm like, screw it, I'm just gonna let everything grow. And I probably let my beard grow for 3 or 4 months. It was pretty gnarly for a while. But my favorite thing to do is make it like over a week span, like you shave a little bit off each day, and you go from a full beard to a goatee.
Well, no, I can't do the fun stuff. I can't. I won't be able to do the fun stuff.
And it gets to the point to where the final day you just have a mustache. You got nothing else.
I know I can't do that because I'm gonna have I have to let it all go and then get rid of it all by the Monday I'm back to be on TV. So it's got to.
Is that in your contract? Do you have to be clean shaven?
No, but I'm old school.
You've got a colleague that
I'm old
rocks a
school.
beard,
Yeah,
right?
Brandon.
Yeah,
but Brandon's got a good beard, and I'm not gonna have a.
You don't know that
beard. I know that. I'm pretty confident. Like there might be about 9 colors coming through this beard. I've got a lot of red hair in my family. The only place it comes through is like on my chin. So this could get interesting. And I'm sure that there are grays in there. That are so. But what I'm saying is like, do you go like once it gets long enough? Because I use the electric shaver now every day. I have to use it every morning. That's not going to be able to take down an actual beard.
So what I do, what I've done,
just shaving cream and straight razor.
Well, no, I mean you can, but what I've done is I'll use like a trimmer, like you've got or whatever, to get it down, and then go with the manual razor and shaving cream. That's what I do typically. Because at least for me, like I lather up with shaving cream on a gnarly long looking beard. That's a big ask for my razor. Like that's asking my razor to do a lot.
It's going to be painful.
So I try to trim it up and make it short, and then I can go through it with an actual razor.
I may make it through, 4 or 5 days of this and just be like, nah, because my neck itches and I hate that.
The last time I did that,
I'm like,
I had obviously the longer beard, and then I did that every day, a little bit more came off to the point to where I just had a mustache. And I remember I walked out of the bathroom and my wife said, "You look like a motorcycle cop. You need to go back in and take care of the rest of it." And so, I would love to just rock a mustache. That would be incredible.
I mean, if my wife better hope I don't ever stop working in TV. Because that's when, like, I've never known what long hair looks like. I've never, like, I will, and this happens all the time. Like, obviously, David Letterman's a great example, but Merrill
Teller,
Teller here is like, if you see Merrill lately, like, he's got long hair and a big old beard. I had an old, guy I worked with in Amarillo forever that was like for 50 years was on the air and not. And then all of a sudden I've seen pictures since he's retired and it's just like full on. And I'm like, oh man, you better hope I don't ever I hate shaving, and I have to do it every dang day of my life. Let's talk, Tommy, about the NFL yesterday. So it was two stories. I mean, they're big stories, but they're expected stories. We'll start with the Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed is tagged. We thought so. What got a little strange about that is after the reports last week on Sneed, they didn't actually do it. So there's like reporting that has to be done to the league. And so we're making our way through this, and I guess they didn't do that. And that was a little odd because you had the reports like, and they're working on an extension with Chris Jones. And it made me wonder, like, are they just trying to get a little bargaining power in there with Chris Jones and say, you know, we still have that franchise tag that we can use on you, or what? Because there's no reason for them not to. And they've done it now. They've tagged him now, which it's the kind of tag that they can trade, which we expected. They'll trade him. There's plenty of people that want L'Jarius Sneed. It was a little odd, though, that it didn't happen when we thought it happened, and then now it has. Like, the only thing I can think of is maybe they were trying to use it as a Chris Jones bargaining chip, but it doesn't seem like those negotiations this time will get to that point again, like they did a year ago with Chris Jones.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer that they tried to dangle that franchise tag in front of Chris Jones, because I think that with everything that happened with Chris Jones last year, and keep in mind, this process has lasted a long time. I mean, the discussion about Chris Jones and an extension started well before last summer when it really kind of came to a head. So at this point, I would imagine Chris Jones is as big of an expert in the franchise tag as maybe anybody in the NFL, just because of how long this is all played out for him. And I think, the Chiefs, if they were to try to use that as ammunition in their negotiations, I'm not sure it would work, because I think Chris Jones, is savvy enough. He's been around for long enough and went through what he went through last offseason to really know how to play that. So I would be surprised if the Chiefs did try to use that as leverage or a bargaining tool in their negotiations. And it sounds like the way that things have been progressing with Chris Jones, it's far different this offseason so far than it was last offseason. So I have a hard time thinking that. I don't know if there was any other reason to not tag L'Jarius Sneed in the time that they didn't, or if it was just simply, in their process of things. And now they've done it. It's official and taken care of. I don't know if you can read anything more into it than just there was a delay of a few days before they actually got him tagged.
Yeah, and look, what I guess what made it a little stranger too is it's so clear that they're going to do this, and that L'Jarius Sneed is totally fine with them doing it, right? Like, there's no animosity or anything like that with this expected, and now tagging actually happening. So I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. They're going to trade Sneed. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I think about that. He's so dang good. I guess realistically, we have to think about A, they've drafted that position really well recently. B, it's pretty hard to imagine them having both Sneed and McDuffie on big deals. And maybe this is simply we are going to go Team McDuffie here. Or it's just simply that he's cheaper for longer. That I think we probably should have seen this. We probably should have seen this coming. I prioritize Sneed because he does so many different things well for them that it made it seem likely that they would bring him back, but it was going to be hard to bring him back. So maybe it shouldn't surprise us. It does change their defense, though. I mean, losing that changes your defense quite a bit. And so, because they're going to lose Willie Gay, you got to get Chris Jones back now, don't you?
I think you do.
I mean, you can't both lose in the secondary and lose, at pass rusher. I don't think you want to lose both of those things. This feels like it's probably given a little bit of leverage to Chris Jones.
I think a little bit, but I also don't think it's a foregone conclusion yet that they are going to lose Willie Gay. I think that, it's probably something that I would imagine will happen. But if they're willing to move on from L'Jarius Sneed and make that trade, which it looks like, I would imagine that's probably going to happen. I don't think that they would also aggressively look at making a move on Willie Gay. I think that they would try to do everything that they can to re-sign him. And maybe there are other teams that are out there and his value is driven up to a point to where the Chiefs aren't going to match that. That could very well happen. But I'm just not sure that they would be willing to willingly move on from Willie Gay Jr. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Oh, they are. They're moving on, but because they have Chanel, they have other guys that can play the position. I just think there has been, I mean, his posts a long time ago. I think it's been pretty clear that both sides are aware they're moving on from Willie Gay. Don't you?
I would have said definitively yes before they tagged L'Jarius Sneed. I'm not sure that the Chiefs would desire to lose both Sneed and Willie Gay. I could see one or the other. And it looks like, it's probably going to be Sneed. I'm not sure that, unless I'm missing something, I think they'll make an attempt, to try to keep Willie Gay.
Nah, they have Chanel, who was like graded out as the best player, one of the best players in the Super Bowl. I think they're totally fine moving on from Willie Gay. I look more at Chris Jones, and I look at what else they can do with that money in other spots. I still think that it's a massive signal that they are going to go after offensive line and find that left tackle, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through a trade, whatever it is. I think they're probably pretty sick of worrying about that spot and that position. That's what I would guess. And I would guess that it's good news for Chris Jones, but I don't think it changes anything with Gay. I think we're going to look at a defense next year that doesn't have L'Jarius Sneed or Willie Gay. And so they're going to have to, I think at linebacker, they're in better shape because they have players that, have had to step up in Gay's absence this year. But at corner, while I like some of their backup guys, you're not really replacing Sneed, which means you got to have Jones create that pass rush to help your secondary. The strength of the Chiefs this year is people couldn't really throw on him. But Sneed is, Sneed helps in a lot of different ways. Like, he's such a great tackler. Like, everyone, when you hear scouts and stuff talk about this Chiefs secondary, they're talking about how well-rounded, right, the Chiefs are at those two spots, how well-rounded their two corners are. So I don't think you're just outright going to replace Sneed. I think your replacement for Gay might be Chanel, and he's just there. And then maybe you try to bring Tranquil back. But this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. When everybody said, oh, the last offseason was the Chiefs offseason that was going to be really tough, and now they're ready. I'm like, guys, I don't know that that's true. And it's because what they have to do this year, it's what they have to do next year. And now with McDuffie, I don't think you let Sneed and McDuffie go. What they have to do 2 years from now, like, there are all these other moves that have to be. I don't think this is an easy offseason at all. I think it's a really difficult offseason.
Well, we went through the list of every single free agent as soon as the Super Bowl was done, and there were a lot of them. Like, there were a lot of pending free agents for Kansas City. And so I think that it's, we've all had the indication that this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, would look different, from this past season. And I think that in a couple of different areas offensively, it would look different. Wide receiver is going to be one of them, probably running back outside of Isaiah Pacheco, would look a little bit different as well. So I think we are seeing an overhaul in some areas. And I think obviously the L'Jarius Sneed news is the start of that. And as much as, I would personally love to see them try to re-sign L'Jarius Sneed and, get him locked in alongside Trent McDuffie. I think those two guys anchoring your secondary will make that secondary elite for a long time. Financially, that's not really the strategy or the direction that the Chiefs, usually go. And I think that you have to filter all of it through what Brett Veach likes to do and the way that he tends to construct his teams. He has probably more than any other general manager in the National Football League, he has a strategy in which he builds his team. And it's predictable. Yeah, I think that we've been able to come up with, sort of the ways that he likes to maneuver through things, whether that's drafting and developing or going, if he's going to sign a veteran free agent, find somebody maybe under the radar who's not going to garner a whole lot of money. Like, there are, really telltale signs of a Brett Veach team. And so I think that as we're going through this offseason, as much as we would love to keep some of these players, you have to also filter it through what does Brett Veach typically like to do.
Attack the offensive line. That's what he likes to do. That's what they've been the most aggressive at over the last, 3 off seasons now. And that's where I think they're going to stay aggressive. And I haven't really looked at the free agent class there very much. I don't know if that's the easy answer or if I think it's more likely that they trade for it. I mean, I think they draft too late to try to hope for one to fall in the first round. There's not a lot of teams that want to trade left tackles. So maybe free agency is the ticket there. It will be. I think it's going to be different than most people think. I think people have got wide receiver on their brain and all these things. I think it's going to be left tackle, and it's going to, be a little bit vanilla as far as like splashy whatever. But they are still trying to address that position. Wasn't Orlando Brown? Donovan Smith is another Band-Aid option if they want to go that way, but he wasn't fantastic this year. Jawan Taylor has not been a successful endeavor. So, as well as they have evaluated and done corners and linebackers and all these, they've not really done a good job with the tackles. So maybe they can, stop trying to do stop gaps and get it figured out long term. We'll see. We've got the Russell Wilson news. I think we're going to play. I want to do this, and I was going to try to get this in yesterday. So Dennis Dodd, I had a chance to catch up with him on all these college football changes for an interview we ran Saturday. Everything is still relevant there. So I want to get you his takes on some of this stuff changing with CFP because he had a lot of good info, good insight, as he always does. So we'll play you that, I think, in the second hour as well. And then we can talk about some of the things he said there as we continue to look at the evolution of college football. All coming for you on Sports Daily. KFH hotline is open, 869-1240. We'll be back with more right after this.
Okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Oh boy, everybody start panicking. Facebook and Instagram are down.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Yeah, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I tried to look at something there not too long ago, and it kicked me off. And I'm like, oh, good. I got to try to remember a password.
Yeah.
And then it got weirder from there.
I was concerned that I got hacked. And I'm like panicking, like, oh, God, a hacker is taking over my account. Maybe a hacker is taking over everybody's account. Maybe that's what it is, and that's why everything is down.
Could you imagine how bad that would be if that happened?
That would-
All the
man.
information that we give them.
Yeah.
Jesus. Whew.
I don't even want to think about that right now.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, we'll move along with our day either way. So we'll have that Dennis Dodd coming up for you at the top of the hour. We've got a lot going on today. We've got Wichita State baseball at OU in a fun one that will actually kick over to KNSS this evening. 6:15 pregame coverage as they get a nice contest. The other NFL story, Tommy, I wanted to hit is Russell Wilson. Expected. But, man, it sure seems like there's a possibility Russ comes in and plays on the league minimum. And I think that makes him a pretty nice option on the open market when you know you can get a quarterback that doesn't really cost you anything. And I'll tell you who I think it makes, like if I'm a team that's drafting one of these other quarterbacks, like if I took, let's say, Bo Nix or Michael Penix, right? Where there may not be quite, or even maybe JJ McCarthy, although he's moving up boards a little bit, but maybe it's a guy that you've taken in the middle of the round, end of the first round, whatever it is. That's where Russ would make some sense to me. Maybe you can get one of these guys and sit him down for a minute because that historically does really, really well in the NFL when you can afford to do that. And I do think that's an interesting, there are other places where he could go in and like try to help a team do something. Like if let's say you're Pittsburgh, Justin Fields is off the table for whatever reason, right? You're picking wherever they pick and you have a chance to take Penix, but you also have a chance for Russ to come in and help you next year. Doesn't that make sense to you? Like I think Russ has a lot of opportunities out there for the next season to go do something. And I mean, for him, it's reestablishing yourself and trying to get another deal, obviously.
Yeah, I think New England is a really good fit potentially for Russ, because it's not going to work with Mac Jones or any of the other quarterbacks that they've trotted out there, Bailey Zappi or whoever. So it wouldn't surprise me if New England takes a quarterback like Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, somebody like that. And then you've got the veteran in Russell Wilson coming in there at the league minimum to be able to play and kind of bridge that gap. And so I think that because of the situation, and I'm not suggesting that Russell Wilson is going to have this resurgence by any means, but remember, there was a small period of time just this last season, the first, 6 or 8 weeks of the year, that Russell Wilson played pretty well for the Broncos. He actually kind of did. It wasn't his fault that the Broncos were losing, right? He wasn't bad. So I think he can still be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. And when you combine the serviceable quarterback, the veteran presence to mentor a rookie coming in, somebody to bridge the gap at the price tag that he's going to be at, yeah, I definitely think there's a market for him.
Well, look, and the other thing is too, like it works. Right. We have a history even for Jordan Love. I mean, I know it didn't go exactly how Jordan Love would have liked, but it works. Right. Like we see guys that have and obviously Patrick Mahomes is the example we want to use around here. But we see it all the time where it's like, man, there is a lot of benefit. And I don't know, what kind of teacher Russell Wilson is or anything like that. But I think that any time you can get a young quarterback in the NFL an opportunity to come just chill and observe the process, observe the meetings, it does seem to help them. Now, the pressure's on now for teams because they want to get as much playing time out of the smaller deal as they possibly can. But I don't know, like if it's one of these, I mean, it would benefit any of these quarterbacks. There's not a quarterback that will be drafted where I don't think it would benefit them. But I don't think if you're at the top, right, if you're Washington, I think there's too much pressure now to play those guys. Like anybody at the top, whoever, Chicago, Washington, and New England end up taking, they're going to have to play their guys. But all the other teams may not. Like, what about the Giants? If they trade up and they still have Daniel Jones, even if they traded up to get whoever, let's say it's J.J. McCarthy, couldn't you justify sitting McCarthy behind Jones for a season or at least most of a season?
Yeah, I think you could. And, you're not giving up. You're not taking the number 1 draft pick on J.J. McCarthy. So I think you have the opportunity to have some patience with that. So I'm okay with that. I mean, I do think that there is that market for Russell Wilson for all the reasons that we just mentioned. Is he going to win you a Super Bowl? No, he's not. Those days of Russell Wilson are gone. They're long gone at this point.
Right, but any team taking a quarterback right now outside of Pittsburgh,
right?
We don't think has a chance to win a Super Bowl.
You're bringing him in because you're going to get him for pennies on the dollar, and you're going to be able to bridge that gap to a new.
It gives you a good option. I mean, for a team like Pittsburgh or Atlanta or something like that, like he really could help them win a playoff game. I don't know about Super Bowl. Pittsburgh would be interesting. Pittsburgh's consistently good everywhere else. They just haven't been good at quarterback since, Ben Roethlisberger wasn't old. I don't know, something to watch. All right, so when we come back, we're going to play you this Dennis Dodd audio and let you hear what he has to say and everything about this CFP changes and all that. And then we'll come back and we'll sort of get into that a little bit because it is fascinating, but we'll do it when we return for hour number 2 on Sports Daily.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here, and we will bring you this audio. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start this hour off. I was able to catch up with Dennis Dodd, the great CBS sports writer, for a CBS Sports Radio shift this weekend, but so much good stuff in there. It's all still very relevant, still topical, nothing outdated, I don't think, that we talked about on Saturday. So I wanted to play that for you to sort of set things up this hour. So we'll play that, and then we'll come back, and Tom and I will dig into some of the things that Dennis had to say regarding the CFP, regarding, eventual payment of players, all of what the future sort of looks like. So let's play that for you now. This is from CBS Sports Radio over the weekend with Dennis Dodd, the great college sports writer for CBSSports.com. Welcome back into CBS Sports Radio. Jacob Albracht with you here on this edition of the show. And boy, it is a wild time in college sports as we get ready for, some big basketball tournaments, perhaps even wilder as we try to sort out the future of college football. CBS Sports college sports extraordinaire Dennis Dodd is joining us here to help sort through some of the latest here. Dennis, I'm looking at what you wrote on Friday about all of this, and I think one thing is becoming just abundantly clear, that it is in some ways the Big Ten and the SEC's world, and we're all going to have to live in it to some degree. I suppose what degree that is what's now still got to be negotiated out.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Big Ten and the SEC want to dominate the bracket. I think we know that's true, but they want to dominate the bracket because it's a reflection in their minds of what they are, what they deserve, frankly, and some of that is not sitting well with their peers and the general public. The latest was, Thursday? News leaked that they want the number 1 and number 2 seeds automatically granted in the new playoff beginning in 26 to their respective conference champions. Again, what about earning it on the field? I mean, that's just one reply I'm getting. Don't forget Clemson in the last 10 years. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, there's a part of it where, like, I understand they get their negotiating power, but just take the money. Like, why do you need the seeding? Yeah. Earn that. Take the money share.
Yeah. Well, it's a question I had answered once when I asked about the NCAA. And the reply I got was those in power always want more power. And I think that's the easy answer. Look, they're going to get the money in some form. For the first time, they're going to get weighted shares, and I'm talking about the SEC and Big Ten, the playoff money. That's never happened before. In fact, it's never happened in the history of championship football since '98 when the BCS debuted. At some level, the conferences all shared revenue equally. Power 5, Group of 5 was different, but never a subdivision with these two at the top. So some would say that the money should be enough, but they want the world and they want it now.
I'm a little concerned about that when I think back to, you and I both live in Big 12 country and followed the league. Like, on a smaller scale, the Big 12 tried that with Texas and Longhorn Network, and that issue never really went away, right? Like, that's a tough world to live in.
Absolutely. The Longhorn Network almost broke up the Big 12 back in 2010-11. I mean, it was the reason Texas and those 5 other Big 12 schools didn't go to the Pac-12 at the time. If you remember, it was about to become a Pac-16 when they raided the Big 12, and at the last minute, Texas was all in and then said, no, we want to keep the Longhorn Network. And Larry Scott, the commissioner at the time, said, no, actually, that's a sticking point. We have our own network. And so, but for the grace of God, the Big 12 would no longer exist today because of that. And the irony of ironies, it will shut down, I think, July 1st of this year when they join the SEC.
Yeah, and timing's been fortuitous to the Big 12. And I guess that's an example to the flip side as much as it is to the negative, because it did create animosity within the league. But, if it saves the league, it just amplifies the need sometimes to understand that certain teams, in this case, certain leagues, have and probably have a rightful claim to a little bit more of the share because they bring more to the table. As long as we have guaranteed spots for, if it's still 4 power leagues, Big 12, the ACC, and one group of 5, I think we'll be okay, because I think that's what's got to be important. The all at large scenario was the doomsday scenario to me. So if it's 3-3, 2-2, or 2-2, whatever the number is, as long as those champions have a spot, I think that college football will have its rightful place as a national brand. I'm concerned, though. If it's all SEC and all Big Ten, you'll not convince me that people in the Midwest, our part of the world, or people in ACC, they're not going to care about that. I just don't think they will.
No, I agree. I think there's going to be some burnout if that happens. Already you have the same teams showing up in the college football playoff the last 10 years. I think at last check, I think there were 14 teams total that occupied those 40 spots over the last 10 years. The same old, same old. Cincinnati was new. Texas actually was new this past year. TCU the year before that. But you know what I'm getting at. Their response, unstated, to that would be, well, fine, we'll do our own thing. I mean, there are now credible reports out there that they are exploring leaving the NCAA, or at least outside the umbrella of the NCAA. And Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, has been leaving little breadcrumbs in comments for years that we could do our own playoff in our conference alone. This is the manifestation of that. In other words, if you don't agree to this or some form of this, we'll do our own thing.
Yeah, but their own thing's not going to be as valuable as they think it is. That's my contention, at least. I just think they're overplayed. We already have the NFL. We don't need another NFL. We're not going to consume college football like that if it's just teams in certain regions that, quite frankly, if their game doesn't impact the school I follow, I'm not nearly as interested in it as they think I am. I think that's most of the country. Yeah, it'll matter to the teams, that the regions and in the alumni and everybody that already follows these schools. But I think they think that they'll have this newer version of the NFL if they do that, and we'll just watch us. I think that's overplaying their hand. I think they need the national appeal of all of these teams involved in an end of season tournament if they're ultimately going to keep the interest in the eyeballs they're going to have.
I think there's two things on that. I was told by a colleague this week that if they in fact did that, the two leagues at the top, they would double their money. In other words, they've consolidated all the best brands in two places. They've realigned to get the best rivalries that really matter in the sport in one place with those 34 teams. They would double their money. The other part of that is, short of that, I think there's room here for a group of 5 playoff. The issue being, where's the cutoff? Is it those 34? Is it the top 70 or 80? I think there's some real value to that in terms of money and interest, frankly. In this NIL era where the NCAA told us, the game will crash and burn, nobody will watch, people will turn off their TVs, record attendance, maybe highest TV ratings ever for college football last season. I think you could capitalize on that with a group of 5 playoff, and maybe that makes everybody happy. The hardliners at the top that want to keep everything to themselves, and access and a meaningful championship for the others.
Yeah, I think that if you get the access, everybody's going to have to swallow their pride and understand the SEC and the Big Ten are getting more money. They're going to get more money. They deserve more money, quite frankly, as much as it pains me to say that. They do. That's fine. You got to have the end game be one unified championship. It also makes me think of Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, joining us here on CBS Sports Radio. It also makes me think of the NCAA tournament too. And it always amazes me. And I think I'm probably right on this. So you have like the NFL postseason, the Super Bowl, as the American, gold standard of properties in sports. Man, I think the NCAA basketball tournament is the second best, and that is a massive tournament full of teams we don't know about. I think it's a good example of why you still need that stuff. I mean, we go nuts for that basketball tournament, and college basketball itself is far from the second most valuable, sport in the country, yet it has this postseason that is insanely valuable.
Well, think of the dichotomy here, Jacob, that the SEC and Big Ten want to isolate themselves as top for more money. In the NCAA tournament, there's been rumblings of late, actually not of late, for a while, to expand the bracket. Well, the unsaid context of that is the bracket's not going to be expanded for the fifth place team in the Missouri Valley. It's for the team that's currently not getting in from the SEC and Big Ten. So it's really two different trains of thought. We want the college football playoff for ourselves, but we also want a bigger NCAA tournament because we have to play with all these teams, these mid-majors, to get our teams in. So it's very interesting from that respect.
Yeah, I don't know I don't really have a strong take on that. I mean, I think, look,
Yeah.
I would be perfectly fine as somebody that follows the Big 12 this year if the Big 12 had 10 or 11 teams in that I think they're all capable and deserve it. So, I mean, I suppose that's fine. I don't think we'd care that much, honestly. Like, you just have more, you would have more play-in type games probably. It wouldn't be that big a deal. I don't think it would impact things too much.
If some is good, more is better. I'm with you.
I want to talk too about some of these court cases, Dennis, that have been happening. The NCAA, they just don't seem to stand a chance in court. So you've got unionization potentially happening. You've got booster money in NIL, basically deregulation being favored. What does all of this mean, right? Like, are we getting, I mean, it feels to me like we're going to get to the point where schools are just going to, pay players based on booster money or whatever. And that may get regulated by conferences, which is, it all seems to tie together, but the elephant in the room seems to be that the players are just going to have to get paid, and they got to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. I think within the year, we're going to have resolution on that, whether it's collective bargaining, revenue sharing, flat out pay for play. I think, that those who control that discussion will decide. I think the average AD right now is resigned to that fact. But Jacob, try to be Power 5 AD right now. And there's a thing called pro forma. You know what pro forma means? It's like any business. You chart out your budget for the next 5 years. Yeah. How you have no idea right now because of the things we're talking about, what your budget's going to be, what the revenue is going to be, what expenses are going to be. I just talked to one Power 5 AD, where they projected $40 million per year in revenue, $20 to $40 million per year in having to pay the players. And he said that's going to be tough, but it would just take a reallocation of resources. Maybe the university gets involved and starts paying for some of it. Not ideal, but it's coming. If you don't realize that train's coming down the track, you're going to get hit by it. Whether, like you said, the courts force it, the NLRB forces it, whether there's a proactive conference out there like the SEC and or Big Ten that announce, let's say tomorrow, we're going to revenue share. The NCAA is not going to stop them. They're not going to stop them from paying players. They have no authority right now. So I think all of that in play, and I think it's going to be rectified within the next year.
Tell me if I'm crazy. I think that, it's everybody goes to the worst case scenario that will ruin college sports. But for me, I think of this as they're student athletes who are, employees on campus, just like I was when I was in school. Now, I made like $5 an hour as a student employee, but they just happen to be the highest paid, maybe they're the highest paid employees on campus, but they're still students. I don't think that concept is crazy. And I think you just take the booster. Look at the endowments for some of these schools. I mean, for goodness sakes, if they're bringing in and generating the revenue, you can easily justify using some of that money, take it from the boosters. And then if you are going to do that, let the players have a seat at a collective bargaining table. And then you set a salary cap that can exist within each league. independent of the other leagues. That's not a big deal. Here is this league's salary cap. You must operate within it. The players have agreed to it through collective bargaining, and it is more like a business, and you have a certain budget. I don't think that's outrageous. I don't think it takes away from, the spirit of college athletics. These are just student employees that make a bunch of money. And then if you can do that, it allows the university more freedom to say, but guess what? If you sign this contract as an employee, you don't get to transfer. You don't get to leave without paying a penalty. And that's just a part of the contract that you sign. I think that's all achievable and not that crazy.
No, I don't think it's crazy at all. I mean, that's what collective bargaining is. I've been saying this for months, if not years. That's what collective bargaining is. We'll give you X, the athletes, and in return, you give us, say, 2 years. Coaches would do backflips over that right now, wouldn't they? In every sport, you're committed to us for 2 years. Or maybe you bargain 3. I don't know. That alone would make it worth it. And, yeah, as far as, look, we've lived pay for play for years now. It used to be under the table. Now it's a bit more known. It's more public. But I think what we've learned, Jacob, here in the NIL era, the last 2.5 years since it started, I don't care. The public doesn't care on Saturday if Shedeur Sanders drives a Maybach from his commercial earnings. I don't care. I just want to see him play. I want to see how good he is. Colorado fans want to see him beat USC or win the Big 12 now going forward. I think that's a definitive statement. Anybody you want to talk about. So we haven't seen locker rooms fracture. In general, we haven't seen fans turn on players. There's still that little sliver, that sinew of connection to the educational model where the average fan can go, that guy walked across the same quadrangle as I did. I can relate. And that's why they love the players and they love the school.
And an academic piece to a work contract is probably attainable too through collective bargaining, right? Like what? Yeah. Because these student athletes have been doing it forever for free. Why would they be less inclined to do it now if their financial well-being was tied to those same things? You have to be a model student. You have to go to class. You have to do X, Y, Z. Well, you think they're not going to do that now because they're getting paid? They've been doing it for free.
Yeah, I don't know now. I mean, one aside, in this era of the portal and unlimited transfers, I don't know how these guys are. It's not going to impact their academics. The NCAA says you have to, go a minimum hours per semester to stay eligible. But I had a really good conversation with JT Daniels. If you remember, 4 schools in 6 years. Wright's quarterback had to medically retire in, I think, November because of head concussion issues. He was very forthcoming. He said 70 to 80% of credits don't transfer when you transfer. I mean, he's fine. He's got a degree, chasing an MBA at Rice. But I said, how is that possible? And he said, well, you only have to take X amount of hours to stay eligible. And then he and others have suggested there's going to be a huge downturn in graduation rates because of this. Because, yeah, you can transfer, but that doesn't mean you necessarily get a degree. But you know what? That's the promise. That's the agreement, the unstated agreement with the average student. You don't have to get a degree. It's your choice. And so I think in the future, whatever labor agreement comes out of this, you're going to see players that may or may not go to school. But to your point, on the back end, they will be guaranteed a scholarship or tuition or whatever you want to call it, should they return to school at any point in their careers and their lives. And so that's just the same agreement they have now, extended over a period of years instead of again, why are there 5 years of eligibility? Because somebody said so at the NCAA. Well, that's dumb too. So I think that's going to be in play.
I hope it is, and I hope everybody's reasonable in it and doesn't cling to the old ways. I think there are solutions. You just have to admit that there need to be solutions, and we'll get there. Dennis, we appreciate it. So much great stuff from Dennis at CBS Sports. This is going to be a fascinating topic all summer long, I think, and you'll be right there following along, and we'll follow you in it. It's wild, and cheers to a couple of weeks from now being in a NCAA tournament that looks like it's also going to be wild for totally different reasons.
Yeah, it'd be great to do stuff on the court and field again. How about that?
There's this incredible basketball season happening, and we can't get out of the way of all the other stuff. I agree. Dennis, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports Radio.
Jacob, thank you.
There goes Dennis Dodd. You can find his work at cbssports.com. We're going to take a break. More for CBS Sports Radio coming up right after this. Okay, so there you go on that interview. Sorry for the ins and outs, obviously, we did for CBS Sports Radio, but just wanted to get you that and sort of set the table because it is changing, evolving. We love this topic here on Sports Daily. We're fascinated by it. We love digging into it. So we'll do a little of that as we make our way through the second hour here. We also have a Sunflower Showdown to preview for you. On the way out, let's get some HTO in your hand. So we'll get you both the free iced tea card that's good at either Wichita location, East or West, or in Derby. More than 25 flavors. Get your hands on a free iced tea. Got to try those new tea-based energy shots in there while you're there. I love those things. I take one almost every day. I'm an energy shot guy, so these are clean. They're good. They're a little less intense. I love them. And then a free brew house card, which is available at the East Wichita Derby location. Those are for the coffee offerings, which now feature Free Reign Coffee. It's the company of the guy who plays Rip on Yellowstone. It's his coffee company. We've partnered up now at HTO, and we are serving those coffee beans and all our brew house offerings, all your favorites still there with a little new flair. So you can get one of each, free iced tea, free coffee at HTO. First caller to the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
97.5.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Congratulations to Mark for winning some of that Brewhouse coffee and iced tea from HTO, Wichita East, West, and in Derby. Glad to be able to bring that to you and those giveaways here on Sports Daily. So Dennis was talking a lot and had a chance to dig into some of this, this change in college football and what's coming. And we spend a lot of time on these topics here with Sports Day because we're fascinated by it. And KU and K-State, like so many teams, are in that second rung, the non-SEC, non-Big Ten rung of, and I only mean like the SEC and the Big Ten are controlling the narrative here on how this is all playing out. So everybody else that's not in there is sort of still trying to hang on and be a part of whatever it is that's coming in this new era. I don't know what it all looks like. I really don't. I just know that it's important to the future of the game that everybody's involved in it. I think, as Dennis and I mentioned there, we all probably need to wrap our brains around the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to earn more somehow. Whatever that looks like, they'll have a bigger slice of the pie. They probably need a bigger slice of the pie. They are a bigger player in this, but they're not so big that they can't survive without the others. I think that's the potential fatal flaw. They think they could operate independently from everybody else. I don't think that that's true. I think that they need everybody else to keep a national appeal, a national audience in this. If you want to chime in on any of that, 869-1240, you can do it. Big 12 games tonight, of course, K-State, KU. KU an 11-point favorite. Yikes. Other games of interest around the country in the Big 12. So Cincinnati's going to Oklahoma. Texas Tech is going to Oklahoma State. Really, if you're KU right now and you're sort of looking at the tournament and all the posturing, you're not going to win the league, but you kind of so the teams you want to really sort of root against right now if you're KU, of course, Baylor, but BYU, Texas Tech, you would want them to lose tonight. And you'd want Oklahoma to lose tonight. Those are sort of the teams that you'd like to see because the KU's in danger. Look, this is because KU with 7 losses right now sits 5th in the Big 12. They're tied in the loss column with Tech. TCU is only a game behind them. And then Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas State are all only 2 games behind them. So when you look at tonight, you talk about the implications. Look, if Kansas State is able to do in Lawrence what has seemed impossible, they're only going to be a game back of Kansas in the Big 12 standings. And then they would have a tiebreaker over Kansas. So, as we look at Kansas coming down the home stretch, knowing, that they still have a game in Houston looming, if Kansas were to – now, K-State would then have to also play Iowa State. So I'm not saying it's likely that they could catch them, but they could catch them. And there's a lot of teams that could catch them. There are still, right now, 5 teams in theory that could jump over KU in the standings if KU doesn't right this ship. That's pretty alarming and crazy to think about, but it's there. It's reality. And we'll see. I suspect that they'll come out with their hair on fire tonight. K-State may do the same thing. This is going to be interesting. You look at it, 11 points on the line. Don't love that. I don't think there's any way I touch that. It's going to be a situation to wait for player props, probably. If Kevin McCullough, if we get the opportunity for him on a player prop, for points or points, rebounds, and assists, that's probably the way I would go. I don't know. Can Tyler Perry continue his recent run? That might not be a bad way to look at it, especially when you consider what KU has sort of struggled at this year. Maybe there are 3-point. Of course, you got to make those 3-pointers on the road. That's a difficult proposition, especially at Allen Fieldhouse. So there's nothing jumping off the page at me right now when I look at this game from a betting perspective. The line's too big. The over-under is just at 143. I couldn't believe that when I saw it because it felt like an undery kind of game, but I'm going to have a hard time going under 143. So 143 would mean you're looking at a score, an implied, it's sort of a score of like 76 to 65, 77 to 66, I think would be right where it would get you to that, to get the 11 points. So that's what they're looking at. Vegas is looking at like 77 to 66 as a KU win over K-State. That doesn't feel way off either direction. So I'm not loving the line. I'm not loving the over-under on that one. I'll probably look at player props. I'll probably look at, 3-pointers made, or maybe even just simply points for Tyler Perry. And then I'll be looking at a lot of whatever it is for Kevin McCullough. Remember, it's senior night there in Lawrence. So, we think Hunter Dickinson's probably coming back. So it's got all the, if Kevin McCullough plays and is healthy, and I think we saw this weekend, if he plays, he's going to play a lot. That would lead me to sort of lean into McCullough tonight, if they're even available. With his, health kind of up in the air, they may not even make those available anyway. But you'll hear the game. You'll hear the K-State call of that game, 8 o'clock tonight on KFH. I don't know how much pregame you'll get there because you've got the Shocker women playing at UAB at 5:45. Steve Strain's got that. So that'll take you right up to that K-State game tonight. So it'll be a busy night of basketball. And then again, we mentioned this earlier, but if you're wanting Shocker baseball this evening at OU, big contest for them, big opportunity. That one you'll find over on KNSS as it moves for all the college hoops tonight. That'll come to you on KFH. But a very busy night in the sports world are out there. All right, so there's a couple other things out there in the NFL. One, Tyron Smith is not going to return to the Cowboys, it doesn't look like. That becomes an interesting idea for the Chiefs, who are trying to solve left tackle. He's one of the best that's ever played. Now, he's had a lot of injury issues, so you'd be taking some risk there if you're the Chiefs, but the dude is an incredible left tackle when he's out there. One of the best ever. That would be an option, I would think, for the Chiefs. Saquon Barkley, just seeing here this morning, as another interesting read. I don't think this interests the Chiefs at all, but you never know what you can get creative with what might fall in your lap. But it doesn't look like New York's going to tag him. So I think Saquon Barkley is just going to straight up become a free agent. The market could be low enough and suppress enough that it makes me wonder if the Chiefs would get in on any of the, and I don't think it'll be Barkley so much as him not getting tagged probably is setting that tone we thought we'd see, with Eckler and Derrick Henry and all these guys. I thought Devin Singletary, who may end up in that same situation, maybe makes some sense. None of this is a knock on Isaiah Pacheco. I think Pacheco's the guy. I think Pacheco needs to be the guy. It does make me, but I also think they need to really emphasize who backs him up, because his style is going to, make it very unlikely he plays all 17 games or whatever. But when I hear names like, Barkley and Eckler and some of these guys, it makes me wonder, like, can you attack two places at once through those guys? Can those guys, like, you'd have to get real creative, but we know they're dynamic receivers. Could they simply become another receiving option at the same time as give you something in the backfield to help spell a little bit with Pacheco? It's a much more affordable option, most likely, than you're going to get at wide receiver for one of the premier players. So can you attack two ways there and save some money? I'm curious to see the market for these guys. I think if you look, if it's Saquon Barkley, he's probably want to go somewhere where he can get, 20 touches a game or whatever. Man, if you really leaned into these great pass catching backs' ability to catch, utilize that as another receiving option, save money or resources through the draft then at wide receiver, and get somebody else that can, help you monitor and control the workload for Isaiah Pacheco throughout the season so that he's at full strength next postseason, I do think there's some appeal to that. Now, price means everything there, but there's nothing that's happened in the past few off seasons that tells us there's going to be a bidding war for any of these running backs. It really does make me wonder. So, like, Derrick Henry's on that list. Doesn't make any sense to me because they kind of have their Derrick Henry, right? It's these versatile guys, the guys that would be sort of a Jerick McKinnon on steroids a little bit. Jerick McKinnon plus a big-time dynamic threat. I think Eckler or Barkley could be that. And while that sounds crazy now, and it may be crazy, I just am having a hard time imagining, like, who's going to be in the market for those guys? Like, who's going to step in and pay big bucks for either of those guys right now? I don't know that there's going to be a team that does that. I mean, you can tag a running back now at a pretty reasonable rate, and they're not doing that. And they're older now. So, like, what is the going rate? And if it's lower, maybe you can line those guys up in the slot. Maybe they could, you just run two backs in the backfield and the other team has to, because we know Pacheco's certainly a capable receiver, but you got to, account for one or both of those guys coming out of the backfield. Maybe the Chiefs run two wide receiver sets with a tight end and two backs. I wouldn't rule it out because I think the price tag is going to be lower than we think and what they think. And so if it helps you at receiver, which is an expensive price tag in the NFL right now, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a decent idea, at least something to think about.
It might be something to think about, but the thing that I was thinking when you were talking specifically about Saquon Barkley is what's his willingness going to be to go to somewhere where he's not going to be, RB1.
I think Eckler's willingness would be higher, but I would also say that if the running back market is going to evolve and get paid, it's going to have to be because of their ability to catch the ball anyway. There's no value in being a bell count back. Those guys aren't getting paid. I mean, and you can say, and this is an unfortunate reality, but it's a reality that's coming for Isaiah Pacheco as a late round pick that doesn't cost anything now. He's never going to have a big payday in the NFL because he wasn't drafted early. He won't have it. They'll run him and they'll let him, go nuts for a few years. And then when he's a free agent, they're going to let him walk. So unless some of these guys can figure out how to counteract that, the market's not going to do it. Maybe their ability. So, and maybe if it's a fully embraced, like coming in and saying, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be as much of a receiver as I am a running back. Maybe that's the way to increase their value. Because if Barkley's coming in and saying, I need 20 touches and do all this, we just know there's no value in that for these teams right now. They're just not paying that.
Well, and another thing I wasn't thinking about was a guy like Saquon Barkley. You've also got to think with the team that he's been on for so long, he's never had a shot at it. He's never had a chance.
Yeah, there's the winning factor for sure.
With the Chiefs, he does have that chance to go out on a big winner, and he might want to do something like that.
Well, if you can, the other thing is too, just sort of reestablishing your value, and he's got different values for different teams, but like if you're the Chiefs, there's not a better opportunity right now for a running back to think outside of the box in that way. I mean, you really have to think about like what would have been a perfect role for Jerick McKinnon had he been able to stay healthy. I could easily see, and then we're talking like dynamic guys like Eckler or Barkley, but Eckler probably even more than Barkley. But if you came in and you say, we envision a role for this guy to catch 50 balls this year, 50, and maybe, carry it 8 to 10 times a game. I think that could really be cool to see in the Chiefs offense. But there are receivers who are going to catch 50 balls a year who are making more money than these running backs. So why wouldn't you embrace it? And not every running back can do it, but those guys can. You want the ball in their hands in space. Create it. I think it's an interesting idea and one to watch as we're going to it's going to be a storyline, but I'm telling you, these guys are not going to get anywhere near what they want to get. There's not a team that's going to do it. So outside of the box stuff may be the way to go for them. All right, the hotline is open at 869-1240. Again, congratulations to Mark for winning our HTO giveaway. We'll come back. We'll continue to prep you for the Sunflower Showdown tonight and bounce around the rest of the sports world. We return on Sports Daily.
It's time to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in Sports Daily, everybody. So the Russell Wilson time is Denver is open. There's a lot of things that are going to happen within the contract where Denver's going to have to eat like $85 million. We don't know exactly how they're going to maneuver that, but it's been strange. And Tommy and I mentioned this. He now all of a sudden becomes one of the more, for somebody else, right? One of the most desirable quarterbacks. He's going to be so affordable. It's wild, and his courting this free agency will be interesting to see. Another team that might tie into that are the Minnesota Vikings, who now it's looking murky on Kirk Cousins' potential return there, as you've got Kevin O'Connell out there talking about, potential tampering with Cousins and, whether he's been talking to other teams. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I talk to, Brandon Zenner, who's a big Vikings fan in the office all the time about Kirk Cousins. He's ready to move on. I think a lot of Vikings fans are. I just don't know. Kirk Cousins is fascinating. He might very well, had he not got hurt last year, won the MVP. I don't think that's an outrageous statement to say. His numbers have been very consistent. They're, in the short term, not going to get any better. But I suppose the question is, long term, is that going to be the answer? I wonder what it means for Justin Jefferson, quite frankly, because if you don't have Cousins there and you're going to rebuild, do you really want to pay Justin Jefferson all the money he's going to get paid, or do you, try to capitalize? Their offseason gets really, really interesting if it's not Kirk Cousins. Where he could potentially go becomes really interesting. Like Atlanta would probably still be a good fit for him. You put Kirk Cousins in a situation where he can get a little protection and he's got a few options to throw to. That dude can shred you up, and he has over his career. So he gets really interesting. And so then with that movement, you've got now Russ Wilson potentially moving around a little bit and helping somebody. Tommy and I laid out a little bit there with Russ. Like, doesn't he make a ton of sense to bring in, if you're going to take a young quarterback? You can get, in relative terms, free year of Russ to sort of reestablish himself while you get whoever it is that you think might be the long-term answer and just sort of, put him on ice. Denver's part of this is really interesting. Denver doesn't have a backup plan. They're just so ready to move on from Russell Wilson that they'll eat all this money. I keep thinking that, through that, maybe Denver's a team that's about to get real aggressive in this rookie quarterback class. Maybe there's somebody that Sean Payton just loves so much that he's going to do everything he can to go get that player. Maybe that player isn't one of the, the big time names we've heard about. Maybe it's somebody later on. I don't know. I mean, he's had success with Drew Brees, obviously, who wasn't the number one overall pick or anything. It is always the most interesting to try and chase the quarterback carousel of the NFL. It's just as interesting this offseason in probably a little bit different a way than we've seen. I don't think anybody is, I don't think anybody's saying Kirk Cousins is Aaron Rodgers, but at where they are in their respective careers, I mean, is it really that different than what we had? How much better is Aaron Rodgers than Kirk Cousins at this point? And you can, go back to a year ago because, Rodgers had a couple MVPs recently, but he wasn't all the way himself in his final year in Green Bay. I mean, Kirk Cousins was as good last year before he got hurt as he ever has been. And now they have a really talented group of pass catchers there. But there are teams with talented pass catchers. Pittsburgh, Atlanta. I mean, Pittsburgh and Atlanta become the two we always talk about in this. And then there's the Justin Fields, piece of this. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reporting that the team had no interest in acquiring a big name successor for Kenny Pickett, and they don't really want Fields, and they may be ready to just roll with Pickett. Well, doesn't that make sense for somebody like Russ Wilson? Ryan Tannehill's going to be out there. His name's mentioned here, but I mean, Russell Wilson to Pittsburgh, to me, in my opinion, makes the most sense of any of this, because they're good enough that if he gives Pittsburgh what he gave Denver, I think they would be dangerous in that division, honestly. But if Minnesota gets in the market, then you're talking about the ability to go throw to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and who knows about TJ Hawkinson at some point. If Kirk Cousins isn't there, that's probably the most attractive place to go for one of these guys. It's also, maybe perhaps a place where a rookie would have the best opportunity to succeed. So there's a lot moving around here in the NFL with quarterbacks. Oh, and by the way, it's a class of rookie quarterbacks that, people pretty widely consider one of the stronger classes we've seen recently. So it will be fascinating to see all this stuff play itself out. We're going to take one final break. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network today when Sports Daily returns on a Tuesday.
KFH. Wichita's most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on board today with us here. I will be back tomorrow with Tommy. So a little more time with me before you miss me for hopefully you miss me for a little bit. Coming up tonight, you've got, again, Shocker basketball on the women's side at 5:45 here on KFH. Then you'll have K-State basketball, the men at KU, that Sunflower Showdown. That coverage begins at 8 on KFH. And then you'll have Shocker baseball coverage beginning at 6:15 over on KNSS this evening as they go on the road to Norman to take on Oklahoma. A lot of great stuff. Appreciate Jad Chambers producing for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you then.